All right, so I think we should be live now with our totally new setup. Fingers crossed. Hopefully, the stream quality will be good and the audio and video will be in sync. If there are any issues, bear with us, be patient. Ben and I spent the past 2 days basically trying to get this sorted. It's surprisingly complicated to run a live stream by your own system with a nice camera. Here I'm using my Panasonic Lumix G7, and it's like significantly more technically demanding to do a live stream this way, but I also think it's significantly nicer, right? So we tested it multiple times yesterday and today, and many of them the encoding was not right, the keyframes were not right, the audio and video were out of sync. I mean, there are so many things that can go wrong. Uh, but we iterated and were patient and kept Googling things and YouTubing things. And I think we got it right on our last test that we did privately. It looked like everything was pretty much perfect, and we did it for like 20 minutes. So hopefully we've done our due diligence, and hopefully this will be a perfectly smooth and high quality stream, nicer than any stream I've ever done before. Hopefully. But if there's any glitches, do let us know in the chat. Please give us any feedback at all. We're going to patiently work very hard to get this working well and stably. So yeah, your feedback will not go unheeded. And otherwise, I'm going to trust that everything's good. Ben, so far, everything good? All right, excellent. And so let's just roll with it then. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for coming to my live stream. Probably most of you probably have been here before, but if you happen to be here for the first time, I do live streams on a variety of weird topics, ranging from, I guess, like philosophy to politics to my own social and personal life or whatever. I don't know, whatever I feel like. And I have guests on frequently. So first thing I want to say is huge thanks to my patrons. This significant bump up in quality that you see here would be unthinkable if I wasn't getting money from patrons. So yeah, if you're a patron, huge thanks. You are responsible for allowing me to make this nicer and nicer. So yeah, it's really exciting. Like it's much more fun for us too, isn't it, Ben? Like you were saying before, just a minute ago, you're like, this is awesome. Like it looks so cool. So it's much more fun to be doing things when you're investing in making it like high production quality. So yeah, thanks to the patrons for sure. The more patrons I get, the sky's the limit on how cool and nice I can make all of this. And what else? I have a kind of welcome spiel. If you don't know already, I have a Discord server. If you're interested in talking with people that are, I guess, kind of like me, then there should be a link below. You just fill out a little survey I have you fill out, and I'll bring you into the Discord server if you want to talk to other people about the stuff I'm interested in. What else? I think we'll keep it short since I gave a long kind of introduction to the new technical setup. But before I get into the substantive topics for today, I have many, many random but nonetheless substantive topics planned for today. Ben,
Yeah.
I want a little feedback on the technical side. How we doing? Is all
Great.
yeah?
Yes, very smooth. We have from nothing says looks good, homie. There's a bit of a hiss. Could possibly be fixed with the low pass filter.
Ooh, okay. We'll work on that. We'll work on that. I would say for now, if the audio and video are like high quality and not stuttering and they're in sync, that's enough of a success for me today. So we can work on the high pass filter for sure. So thank you for that. But how many people we got in the house so far?
We have five.
5 people in the house. And did you
Six.
cool? Did you tweet it?
Yep.
Cool. No worries. So welcome to the few of you that are here. All right, let's just get into it then, shall we? Ben, if there are any hiccups or people are complaining about anything, do let me know and we can address them. So, a few other things. I wanted to update people on some news. Nothing too significant, but my birthday's coming up. That's the first bit of news. Yeah, I'm going to be 33 years old on August 11th. Yep.
Congratulations.
Yep. So, thank you. Thank you. Another year down the drain. No, I don't think about it that way. It's fun getting old, I have to say. People say that your 30s are better than your 20s. And so far, I would agree. I think as you get older, you just feel more, you don't give as much a fuck about what people think about you and stuff like that. You just feel a little bit more based. I feel like as you get older, as long as you have a healthy attitude towards age. I think some people are afraid of aging. And I don't know. I guess I struggle a little bit with my mortality, but not more than average, I don't think. I'm at peace with it. And yeah, I think another thing is like when you take weird risks in your life, like apparently I do, you feel younger, which is kind of cool. Like when I was in academia, like in like the fourth, fifth, sixth year that I was an academic, I felt really old then. Like I felt really, yeah, just like atrophying. And I felt very, like the prospect of being in academia for like another 50 years um, made me feel very old. And that actually made me feel more anxious about my mortality. Like, is this it? Is this really it? uh, but then when I fucked off on all that and kind of broke out on my own, now I feel much younger personally. So I think there's something to that. I don't know how much that generalizes. I'm not giving life advice here. I really can't speak for anyone else, but yeah, I feel young and good. I think the appropriate attitude towards death is not to deny it or repress it or ignore it out of anxiety, but to just be at peace with it so that you don't even think about it. And I think that's where I'm at, or at least that's what I aspire to just be so full of life that, you know, you're just moving forward and you're not looking back and you're not worrying about health and death. And then one day, like, I'll just get cancer and die, and I'll just be like on my deathbed and I'll be like, yeah, I had a good long run. It was cool. Anyway, why did I start talking about this? I have no clue. That's the benefit. That's the benefit of having your own live stream. Oh yeah, my birthday, right? So, by the way, people, what do you think about the lighting? Ben and I tried to make this a bit, you know, reflective of my aesthetic, if you will. We were experimenting with different lighting settings, and some of them were a little bit too like it felt like I was in a TV studio. But this I feel like is a little bit moody, a little dark, but also well lit. From the screen I'm looking at, I think it looks really good. But we're very open to feedback at this point while we get things sorted. All right, what else? So actually, what I wanted to talk about. One other quick thing before I move on. Dasha from Red Scare is going to be joining the live stream on August 8th. So I still have to create an event and set the exact time of day, but mark your calendars because that should be interesting. She's been, well, let's just say Red Scare has been one of the kind of most frequently recommended guests, or people have been telling me to go on Red Scare for a very long time now. So I'm happy to finally meet that request. And yeah, I'm looking forward to talking with Dasha. I think the reason why people have been telling me to talk with them, and Dasha in particular, is because apparently she's been talking about becoming Catholic, and I guess people want us to talk about that. And apparently she has a predilection for Zizek and Lacan, I'm told by, I guess, mutual audience members. And yeah, so we're going to talk about all those things on August 8th. So no other news for the moment. There's some other stuff in the works, but I try not to hype stuff until it's booked. So, all right, what I actually thought would be an interesting thing to talk about very briefly. I don't really talk about technology very much, like actual concrete technology, but I'm aware that it's like a big like subculture on YouTube. So I thought, for the heck of it, why not just do a quick little segment where actually we'll tell people about the gear that we're adding on to our setup here. So moving from the old live stream setup, which was kind of like the classic basic live stream setup that all kind of beginning live streamers use. Basically, I had the Logitech C920 camera, which is like $100, just a basic webcam, and then this Blue Yeti microphone. That's what I was doing it was just those two pieces of technology basically, and my 2013 MacBook is what all of my live streams up until now have been. And so what we've added to the mix now is, well, first of all, Ben has a 2018 MacBook Air, so we're using that just because it's newer. And my MacBook Air, my old 2013 MacBook Air, pretty much like catches on fire when I try to do live streaming with all these other bits of technology. So we're now using Ben's MacBook 2018 MacBook Air, and I had to get a dock. We got a nice dock. I pulled it up. There should be a tab for it if you want to show them the dock. Because these new MacBooks, they have like no ports. They just have like one or two USB-C ports. So to plug in things like cameras and USB mics or whatever, you need a dock. So I spent like $300 on that sweet dock, which now gives Ben's MacBook like unlimited options, more or less. That was the one big upgrade recently. And then the other key piece of kit is the Cam Link, which I think I also pulled up a tab for. And this little thing is pretty impressive little piece of technology. It's just a little USB adapter that lets you plug in a nice DSLR or a mirrorless camera. In my case, I have the Panasonic G7, and yeah, it just plugs right in. So it basically makes your fancy camera appear to your computer as a webcam. And yeah, and then to do all of this, we are using OBS, which is the common free open source setup that is very popular among live streamers, and it's very functional. It's very good, but yeah, it requires, if you're going to do live streaming with this more kind of technical setup, you have to basically figure out a bunch of things. And we spent a lot of time Googling. I won't get into the weeds with it because it'll probably just be boring. But if any of you have a Panasonic G7 and a MacBook Air, I could probably tell you a lot to save you a lot of time about how to figure it out, because it took us like 48 hours of Googling and stuff like that, and testing and stuff like that. So I don't suspect there's enough of you out there to make this a worthwhile rabbit hole to go down, but I could do it if you wanted. So yeah, I thought that would be something worth sharing, just in case you're curious about that stuff. What else we got? Okay. So another kind of bit of news, bit of substantive discussion is my good friend Jeffrey Miller, who I'm living with here in Albuquerque. He put out his first ebook experiment. He and I are both kind of together experimenting with creating and selling our own ebooks as a kind of format, a kind of new digital format for publicizing and sharing and disseminating, but also making financially sustainable various types of intellectual work that we do. So that's something that we're experimenting with together. And his book just released yesterday, I think, and he's doing quite well with it. I think, what was I going to say? His book is different than my book experiment that I'm doing right now, which is called Based to Lose. You've probably heard me talk about it. I won't, shill for it right now. We'll talk about Jeffrey's book, not mine. But the difference between the one I'm doing right now and his is that his is pretty much writings that he's already done, writings that are already kind of sitting around out there, and he decided to compile them. And he wrote nice little prefaces for each of them to kind of put them in context. And he wrote a general preface for the book. So there's some original stuff in there. And all of the essays are in one way or another related to this idea of virtue signaling, which has become a very popular word or meme in a sense. And yeah, so it's a very worthwhile little book. And if you're into understanding, evolutionary biology and psychology of what is called virtue signaling, this is a nice little collection of essays. So I also, full disclosure, I'm not totally unbiased, because I basically did the typesetting, like the actual technical ebook production. And that's been a really interesting process, actually. It takes more work than you would think, actually. And they make a few different kind of consumer-facing apps that are expensive. Like I think one is called Vellum. There are a few others. And these are they cost several $100. And these are apps that let you do it quite easily, because the challenge is you have a body of text, right, that you want to turn into a book. But you need to make multiple copies, right, for different e-readers. So ideally, at the minimum, you want a PDF, a Mobi, which is for Amazon's Kindle, and a EPUB for generic e-readers. And so if you have one text, right, you have to produce these three different items, these three different books. And ideally, those books are going to be nicely formatted, but they each have their own formatting needs, right? Like making a table of contents, for instance. You don't want to do this stuff by hand. If you do this stuff by hand for each one, it's a huge pain in the ass. So what you need is a process that takes a plain text file and can rapidly and automatically produce three different ebooks. And so what I was saying before is that they have consumer-facing apps that let people do this, but they're expensive. I think the popular one is called Vellum, and it's something like $300 or $500 or something like that. So obviously I'm a bit of a hacker, so I don't want to pay for that. And you can do this just by writing, scripts in different languages or whatever. And I did a lot of research, and I basically figured it out. And I'm really pleased with it, not just his book and the outcome, but this was a boot camp for me in learning how to produce an ebook. I knew I needed to do this because I plan on producing ebooks for myself. But I figured out a process that I felt like was probably worth sharing, because I know a lot of you who watch my stuff are interested in doing your own kind of independent intellectual work. So I thought that I would just briefly give you a few summary bullet points of the routine or the workflow that I settled on. It took me a lot of time to get it right, but now that I have it right, I can churn out ebooks very rapidly. So it's pretty dope, actually. I'm pretty proud of it. I might actually make a longer thing about it, some sort of longer tutorial, because it took me a lot of time to figure out, but it works really well. Basically, I use a tool called Pandoc, which I've been using for a while. It's an amazing free open source command line utility. So you just have to be able to use your terminal a little bit, but it's very, very simple. And so if you download Pandoc, if you just Google it and download it, it basically, Pan is for like universal and doc is for document. So it's like a universal document converter. It lets you take a plain text file and churn out multiple different alternative versions. So this is kind of the workhorse for the process that I developed. And so I run Pandoc to make an EPUB. I run Pandoc to do a Mobi, and then Pandoc to do, well, actually, technically, I do a Pandoc to PDF and Pandoc to EPUB. And then the Mobi, you have to use a separate, also free tool called KindleGen, which is put out by Amazon. Anyway, I'm getting really into the weeds here. So if you're not interested in this, it might get boring quickly. So I won't harp on it too much. But that's basically the process that I settled on. You just put the whole book, all the text in plain text format, and then you use Pandoc to generate different copies. So basically, if you give me a long text document, I can give you 3 ebooks nicely formatted just by 3 lines of code, essentially, in my typing into my terminal. Or whatever your command line interface is. So yeah, I probably will make a longer thing about that, showing people how to do it, because it's all free. It's just a little technical. You don't actually need to know anything about code. You don't write any code necessarily, but you just have to be able to type like a few lines of words that I tell you to type, and with these free tools. So, and then you can learn more about it, the back end, if you want to as you go. But yeah, so that was pretty cool. I was pretty proud of that. I think his books turned out quite nice. Did you see them, Ben? Did you look at them by any chance? You might not have got to. Yeah, did you? Yeah. Yeah. It's surprisingly difficult because you have to you have cover images, right? And you need to add the cover images, and PDFs and EPUBs have totally different, like formatting expectations. So yeah, I'm really pleased with that. Any interesting comments or questions, by the way? If you have any kind of questions or comments about any other topics that you want me to address, Ben will be monitoring the chat. I'm actually not looking at it at the moment, but.
Tyler Michael, I like the lighting a lot for your streams, but I'm curious how it would work with in-person guests.
Yeah, that's a good question. The question is, how will this work with in-person guests? And we're gonna be working on that. I don't think it's gonna be that hard. It's just we'll have to rearrange the light and rearrange the camera. We'll probably get another camera in the mix. That's something we haven't done yet, but I don't think it's that hard to add another webcam. So what I think we're going to do is have a split screen view. So like right now you see me in one rectangle, but what we might do is when we have multiple people in the room, you'll see like half of the room on like, this side, half of the room on the other side, or maybe it'll be split down the middle. I'm not sure yet, but I think we'll do something like that. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah. Any other?
Yeah, here's one. Nothing says a movie she co-wrote called Wobble Palace is free on Amazon Prime. Would be cool if you watched it and talked about it with her. I think he's referring to the Red Scare.
Dasha co-wrote a movie, did she?
Yeah, I think that's what he's talking
Oh,
about.
cool. I knew she did acting, but I didn't know she wrote movies. That's cool. I'll check that out.
Some people are impressed by the zooms I was doing.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
People like it? Yeah, we're getting tricky, folks. Getting technical. All right, so excellent. So no complaints are awesome. We did it. We figured it out.
Oh wait, Polly P Mouse, I think that's how you pronounce it, says, please address your lack of knowledge in latex.
Oh, I know all about latex.
Okay.
Yeah, academics use latex all the time. Latex is one of the intermediate forms that Pandoc uses. So yeah, but to do ebook production, you don't necessarily need to know latex, but you do have to have it installed. Pandoc requires latex to be installed. Yeah, I'm pretty good with latex to be honest. Latex, for people who don't know, is just a typesetting utility. It's especially powerful and useful for scientific manuscripts is what it's most popular for, because when you're writing equations and stuff like that, it's surprisingly complicated challenge to get that stuff looking nice and well ordered. So latex is just popular among academics for that reason. So yeah, booyah. What?
There's a little wobble when.
Oh yeah, touching the table. Cool. I'll work on that. Thank you. Have I been doing that the whole time, or?
It's just a few times I noticed. But...
Cool. No worries. Awesome. I'm just so delighted that this is up and running, and it's not like this audio and video is not out of sync like it constantly was before. Okay, so now, folks, I want to. How many people we got in the house, by the way?
We have 28.
Okay, cool. Is it like increasing or decreasing?
Yeah, no, it seems to be increasing.
All
Oh
right.
shit, I got some ire from a person. Dontrell Clowries asks, "Are you willing to have a conversation with Eric Stryker?"
People have been saying this to me for the past like this has been a common theme the past week. Talk with Eric Stryker. I looked up Mr. Eric Stryker. I think he's like a legit like white supremacist kind of guy. So, I mean, look, I don't want to judge books by their cover or anything like that, but there are just a lot of very interesting people out there to talk with. So I'm not especially interested in talking with like explicitly uh, like white nationalist types of people. Sorry, folks. I've told you this all many times. So right, where was I? We were talking about oh yeah. So there's the viewers are kind of
26 now.
all right.
It looks like the highest was 30.
Okay, awesome. People are flocking to me out of the extreme sex appeal of our new system. Cool. I just wanted to make sure that we're not like hemorrhaging people. Okay, cool. Awesome. So, okay, what I would like to talk about now is I'd like to tell you a little bit of a story from my personal life recently because I had a funny night the other night where I actually met like real people in Albuquerque, like cool young adult people who are otherwise who I don't have any other connection to. I met them in public. So, Ben, have you ever been to a bar in Albuquerque? It's over near the university called Carreros and Joe's.
Yeah, I live right there
Do
actually.
you? Do you ever go to that place?
Yeah, I was just there the other day.
It's really cool.
It is. It's like a little dive bar with like pool and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome. I was at Flying Star Cafe the other day doing some work, and I started chatting with the guy who works there, and I guess he must have read me pretty well because I mentioned how I was new to town, and he must have read me pretty well because he was like, "Do you like dive bars?" I was like, "Hell yeah, I like dive bars." I was like, "It's one of the reasons I moved from England back to America because England just doesn't have those like cool seedy kind of American dive bars that are kind of a dying breed even here, but that you can still find all over the place here." So I was like, hell yeah. And he's like, all right, later I'm going to be at this bar around the corner called Carreros and Joe's. And I was like, awesome. So I was busy that night. I wasn't able to meet him that night, but I took note and I was like, okay, next time I want to get out of the house, I'll go check out Carreros and Joe's. So a few nights ago, just like 3 or 4 nights ago, I went there by myself at like 8 o'clock or something like that. And I rock up in from the front, and I don't know if there's multiple entrances or is there or.
I think there is, yeah, back entrance.
So I walked through what was I think the main entrance, and
That little, yeah, slant.
all I see is the small bar in the front.
Yeah.
So I'm like, okay, this is just a tiny little bar. Not much to see, but okay, cool enough. And the Democratic debates were on, so I sat down. There were like 3 young guys, kind of my age, like covered in tattoos and like being really rambunctious. So I was like, okay, this is my kind of vibe. Like this is how I like to socialize. So I was like, damn, that guy at Flying Star, like he really gave me a very targeted recommendation. So I was pleasantly surprised. So I sit at the bar, and of course it's all men, like a good dive bar should be. No offense to ladies. I mean, ladies are welcome, of course, but during the day, it was like early. It was probably earlier than 8. Generally, like at 7 p.m. at a good dive bar, it's going to be mostly men. So that was a good sign. Nothing against women. And so I rock up and I'm watching the Democratic debate. This is the first time I even watched the Democratic debate whatsoever. And these like rambunctious guys next to me, I couldn't really tell their age or what they were all about, but I learned later as you'll see in the story. And yeah, basically long and short of it was awesome. I'm just like, it was exactly the kind of like social public kind of hangout vibe that I like. Basically just kind of like really uncouth, kind of slightly, hard drinking, like hard boiled, kind of like, yeah, somewhat reckless, low conscientiousness signaling, like young men. And it was a hoot. And the bartender was like a nice, nice older man. Seemed like a good character, seemed like an upright kind of guy. So I was like, hell yeah, this is awesome. I love Albuquerque now. I've like a place to hang out. But then the story gets even better because I start chatting with these guys, and yeah, they were like, well, it was diverse, but like, so one of the dudes was like Hispanic. I don't know if he was like New Mexican or Mexican or what, but he was like proper local and saying like a bunch of crazy shit. But the other guy was he's a PhD student. I forget if he said he's a PhD student or if he has a PhD from the University of New Mexico in archaeology. I think he said he finished his I think he recently finished his PhD. But do you know people in archaeology?
Yeah, that's Roy, the guy you met. That's his specialty.
Oh, so he's covered in tattoos?
No. I mean, maybe. I don't know.
Oh, I thought you were saying the guy that I met.
know
Oh no, Roy,
people
yeah, gotcha. Yeah. No, that's okay. Yeah, so this dude's like covered in tattoos, but he's like a PhD, and so I was like, basically, the way the story kind of ends is that they were like at a certain point they were leaving, and there's another guy with them too, and they're leaving, and I was just like, and they mentioned they were going back to their house, and I was like, I just invited myself. I was like, yo, could I follow you guys? Could I keep hanging out with you guys? And they were totally cool with it. But actually, what was also cool was the two other people showed up who recognized me because they saw me at Sister Bar. Do you know that place? Yeah, another cool bar, like relatively for the places I've been. It's like pretty cool. I saw them a few days ago. We didn't meet or talk or anything, but I guess they recognized me. I guess I look weird. I'm a weird looking person because I smoke a pipe also. So they saw me and recognized me. They were like, they said to me, they sat down on the other side of me and they were like, were you at Sister Bar a few days ago? Like smoking a pipe? I was like, yeah. And these guys were, it was a man about 31 years old, I think he said. And then a young woman who was 24. And they both work on political campaigns. And they were both New Mexican, like born and raised in New Mexico. And so basically all of a sudden I went from being like a transplant in Albuquerque, not knowing anyone except a few people related to Jeffrey through the university who are almost all, down to the last one of them. They're all transplants also. Just like kind of when you're an academic and you go to a new city, almost everyone you meet and become friends with are other academics who are transplants from who knows where. And so basically I went from having no French friends like in the community or like locals or natives or whatever, to now all of a sudden I have two separate friend groups that I'm at least in the early stages of applying for membership in. And so basically after those dudes left the bar, well, I basically got information from both of these two groups. And then when these dudes left, I went back to their house. Two of them lived together. And it was basically like exactly the house that I lived in, or it was the type of house I would have lived in Philly. It was very similar, like massive, mad space, but it's like relatively poor around here. So it was like cheap. But they had mad space. And I got there and, just like when I was in grad school, like the houses I lived in, there's like a big ass thing of pasta in the kitchen. And it's just like, so I hung out with them and got to know them better. And they told me some crazy stories about their life and stuff. So anyway, that's the little story that I want to share. It doesn't have any like crazy punchline, but it was interesting and fun for me to meet locals. And I think I'm gonna become friends with those people. Honestly, that group of guys, those three dudes, they were super funny and like pretty wild, like to the point that the bartender reprimanded them more than once, like very firmly for how rude they were being to like other people. And I just fucking love that type of person. I love like kind of really rough, rambunctious, hard to contain, kind of like working class type men. I mean, the one guy had a PhD, but even nowadays, like you can have a PhD and be like, doesn't mean you're middle class. So yeah. And then, okay. And the other reason I'm bringing this up is because when I'm done with this live stream, I'm going to go meet up with the young lady and her gay male friend. I forgot to mention that he's gay. Not that it matters. I'm a equal opportunity friend, but yeah, we're going to go meet them downtown. So I have friends, people. Booyah. That's the point of the story. I have friends, real friends, natives, okay? I'm connected to the local land here now. I'm embedded in the local community. So I hope you didn't think that was going somewhere really special. I just wanted to kind of tell you. We're mostly testing the live stream, folks. What else do we got? Let's talk about Jeffrey Epstein. And very briefly, I did not know this until recently, but apparently there are a bunch of conspiracy theories around not just Jeffrey Epstein, but specifically his involvement in the state of New Mexico. Because I don't know how many of you know this, but Jeffrey Epstein owns a ranch in New Mexico. It's not very far from here. And I tweeted a couple days ago, like, oh, it'd be funny if I drove out there and like went to check it out. And people responded to me by saying that actually no one can access Jeffrey Epstein's property. It's like a massive piece of land and with like a multi-million-dollar mansion on it, obviously, and private jets and all that kind of shit. But you can't see it. You can't get to it because apparently, I don't know how much of this is true, but it seems legit. Like the basic facts seem legit. Of course, I'm shaking the table again. Of course, all conspiracy theories go wrong by taking basic facts that are true and extrapolating in a way that's unjustified. So I'm sure there's a lot of that in these conspiracy theories. I'm not endorsing them necessarily. However, it was interesting to learn that what it looks like is Jeffrey Epstein's parcel of land in New Mexico. On all sides, it is there's property owned by like high-ranking, influential local government types of people. Like the governor, I think, if I remember correctly, personally owns land surrounding it and stuff like that. And also, I believe I read that there is government-owned land within Jeffrey's parcel. So like, what's up with that? Can you bring up that tab that I loaded?
Yeah.
There's like
Do it right now.
there's like this one big expose, I guess you could call it, of this guy who like basically compiled all of the aerial satellite images and stuff like that. And yeah, so I didn't go through it too closely, but basically I just wanted to bring it up here because I can't endorse it. I don't know what's going on there, but I didn't know about this. I only heard about it because I joked about going to his ranch in Stanley, New Mexico, which isn't far from here. And then people were like telling me this stuff. So I just thought I'd share it with you all. The one thing that I thought was kind of interesting that I remember from reading that piece was that like since when you have private jets, you usually have a little hangar and like runway. So he has a little hangar and runway. But what's really weird is, I don't know if you can find this on the page, but there are aerial satellite images of two planes that are like way far away from the hangar and the runway. They're like they're just like sitting off on like a weird corner of the property. Now it could just be a fluke. I think I saw on there the guy admits he's like, this could just be a fluke of like the Google imaging. So it could actually be planes flying over. Who the fuck knows? I don't know. I'm not endorsing it, but there's definitely some sketchy stuff in there, and I just think it's funny to explore it. So if anyone has any information or interesting interpretations of all of that, I would be open to hearing what you think. What do we think? Anything else? Any interesting comments or questions? How many people we got in the house right now?
We have 39. So is it me who's lagging, or is the stream? Is it like, okay, yeah, YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming.
Okay, we have our first problem. Well, if it just goes in and out a little bit, that's not a problem. Are you looking at the watch page?
Yeah. YouTube is not, okay, yeah, same thing. I think it may have something to do with when I started sharing that page, but that doesn't make sense.
Okay, possibly.
It's small, it slowed down,
Yeah, that could be it. It could be more demanding to do that.
but now it looks better.
Okay, so good to know. So just put it back on my face, and we'll watch this back over, and we'll see if maybe the lag is caused by the screen switching, and we'll deal with that later. So, all right. Does anyone have any questions, comments, things that I should discuss?
Let's see.
We will open it up now, I think.
Sorry for old topic, but do you think that meeting people is easier in West or East U.S.? Tyler Michael asks.
Oh, that's a good question. Why did they apologize for that being an old? No one's ever asked me that before. I don't know. It's a really good question. Well, I can't really speak about Albuquerque quite yet. I feel like I don't have a very good judgment of it, kind of socially and culturally. But so far, I mean, just based on, to be fair, I only kind of went out to a bar maybe 5 times before this, and the other night was just really, really cool. I don't know if it was just that that's a really cool place that attracts cool, interesting, open-minded people or what, but if that's at all reflective of Albuquerque culture. So I'm becoming like very warm to it. And actually, I was talking with one of the people at the bar in this story that I told, and they were saying how like Albuquerque does have a unique vibe, like a very chill kind of, just like it's like very kind of restful and peaceful, relaxed kind of vibe, but a little bit of that like California kind of West Coast, like I don't know, like openness or something like that. So yeah, I'm still feeling it out. I can't judge at all reliably. Um, but yeah, I think it maybe I don't know. I just haven't spent enough time on the West Coast to give you a good answer. I would love to, and I'm tempted to hypothesize, but it would be really empty because I just don't have enough of a database in my experience in my mind of what West Coast people are like. I definitely do think on the East Coast there is a kind of, stereotypical kind of New Yorkish kind of like hurriedness and kind of irritability and a kind of annoyance with strangers that is a little bit more prevalent on the East Coast. Like, I mean, so far since I've been in Albuquerque, anytime I've tried to be social or strike up a conversation with people in public, they've generally been quite nice. Like, I haven't, yeah, so maybe I guess I could say I sense a little bit less of that kind of East Coast kind of defensiveness and busyness, perhaps a little bit. And I mean, I've only been to San Francisco one time for like a week or two, so I can't really talk about the California vibe too much. What do you think, Ben? Do you have any read on that? Are
Yeah,
Al-
I
is
mean that's pretty accurate.
are Albuquerque people like notably chill or notably?
I think they're a lot more. Yeah, there's like a warmth, kind of more. Yeah, like you said, open and friendlier, I guess, than what I've experienced like back in the East or Midwest. I don't know. People seem more uptight or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I think there might be something to that. I'll let you know as my thoughts, as my observations and my database grow. Um, like tonight, for instance, I'm going out with these people that I met, and I'll let you know. I'll let you know. So, all right. What else? Any other good questions, comments coming up?
Okay, we have one unrelated.
Mhm.
Coleman Mummery. Could you talk more about the Netflix Death Machine? Couldn't that be related to something like capitalist realism?
Ooh, good question. Yeah, so that video I posted yesterday, I think the title is Netflix is a Death Machine. Actually got a lot of views. It seems like it has some legs. So yeah, I'm happy to talk about that a little bit. The question is it related to capitalist realism? Well, first of all, I just want to say, folks, if you're here for the first time, in part because my stream is so fucking sexy now, please do subscribe. This is the beginning of a whole new world for my live stream. So go ahead and subscribe and leave a comment if you have any, thoughts or whatever after the fact. So before I move on, I just wanted to say that real quick because I don't think I said that yet. The point of my video that I posted yesterday was to say that Netflix, I think, in many strange ways, is a death machine, and that it has some weird incentives to basically want death, to even possibly at the margin do what it can to promote death or increase death. And I basically had two examples there. The one example was this study that came out recently showing that the Netflix show 13 Reasons Why may have had an appreciable increase of suicides following it. And so those authors argued that it appeared to be a causal effect, that it actually increased suicides. And the idea is, I guess, because in some way or another, it kind of not necessarily glorifies it, but it has some sort of effect that at the margin makes people more likely to commit suicide. There were many rebuttals to that paper, by the way, so it's not, I wouldn't bet the farm on it being accurate, but I also find it fairly plausible. So they're going to have to be more studies until we really know if 13 Reasons Why actually did increase suicides. However, there's a paper suggesting that it does. So that's one possibility. But also in that video, I talk about my own observations that I've had well before this, which is that how weird it is to watch true crime documentaries. I love true crime. Only over the past few years have I kind of become, I wouldn't say obsessed, but basically every time there's a new true crime documentary, I will watch it, and I find it really fascinating and enjoyable. And then I started to reflect on how fucked up that is, right? Because I essentially love murder. Like I, in some sense, no one likes to talk about this. No one likes to say it this way. But the fact is, if you like true crime, you like murder. You want more murders because you enjoy the entertainment value of it. So a part of me kind of is hoping for, another really salacious murder to happen. And that's fucked up, right? But then I started thinking, well, Netflix, therefore, is also economically invested in murder. They have all of these viewers who want more and more entertaining crimes to learn about. What if murders started to decrease? What if murders even disappeared? The true crime market that it supplies to would suddenly be very upset. And that got me thinking, Netflix is currently going around paying different types of artists and filmmakers or whatever to create all kinds of content, right? That's how Netflix works. It just throws money at producing the widest variety of content, and then whatever sticks, pays off the rest. Whatever goes big pays off all the other failed productions. And so presumably it's working on all the major genres to give people, what they want. So then I started thinking, how this applies to the true crime genre. And if you think about it, you can imagine in the not too distant future that Netflix might even start in possibly in ways that it doesn't even understand. It doesn't necessarily need to be explicit or purposeful, but at the margin, Netflix might promote policies that increase the probability of murder. You could even imagine, I don't know, they put out imagine they put out an award or something like that, say we will give $10,000 to the people who discover, let's say, the most salacious, interesting murder story that no one else has ever heard about. They could do that. It's not uncommon to use prizes or rewards to motivate, creative search energy. But think about the consequences just a little bit after that, right? If they're offering $10,000 to whoever can come up with the best true crime story that no one else has ever heard about, that's pretty much quite close to incentivizing actual murder. Because, well, hey, if I want that $10,000, the best way I can find a really good true crime story that no one else has ever heard of is by producing my own. And so I just think the video is basically just to tease out that idea. So I'm just kind of rehearsing for it. I'm rehearsing it for you right now. Just thinking about the ways in which there are many ways in which Netflix is weirdly invested in death, and we as consumers get also invested in murder. And so that was the point of that video. And so the question is, I suppose, does this connect to Mark Fisher's ideas of capitalist realism? And so if you don't know what those are, the basic idea there is very simple. And I think it's, a very good and powerful idea. It's probably why Mark Fisher's probably his most famous idea. The idea of capitalist realism is that capitalism has this uncanny power or tendency to make itself seem like reality. I think that's the easiest way to summarize that idea. So he argues that we're now living in this kind of capitalist realist moment where people increasingly take what is really the effect or consequences of capitalism. They take that as a given. They take that as features of reality itself. And right, so does it connect? Yeah, maybe. Sure. I'm trying to, off the cuff, I'm trying to think about how, some interesting connections that could be made there. I mean, in some sense, my immediate intuition is that what I'm talking about with Netflix as a death machine is actually far worse than capitalist realism. Like, it's one thing to think that capitalism is reality, and so therefore you really don't blame capitalism for the negative consequences that it produces. It's a whole other beast, though, when capitalism is actively producing like increasingly murderous realities. I mean, this is like capitalist realism on amphetamines or something like that. And I think in a context where there's increasingly close feedback between media producers and kind of marketing data, right? Like Netflix has extraordinary data about what people like and what people watch. And I mean, we've never in the history of the world there has never been in the history of the world a media producer that has so much real-time feedback about what its markets, what its consumers are actually doing with its media, what it likes and what it doesn't like. And when you have that kind of data at that kind of scale, well, then to succeed in a capitalist market, you have to become increasingly efficient and effective at giving people what they want. And so if there is a strong demand for true crime documentaries, I think my point is not at all far-fetched, So this is much more than capitalism simply kind of reifying reality or giving the impression that it is unchangeable, which is essentially the idea of capitalist realism. This is like a much more advanced stage of that. So yeah, in some sense, where we are headed very rapidly, I think, is going to make capitalist realism look quite quaint, to be honest. That's my 2 cents on that. Anything else, Ben?
Not really. I mean, hold on, let's see.
Nothing especially interesting.
No, yeah. Just comments on. Oh, thoughts on the debate? Antoine Finch.
What's up, Antoine? No thoughts on the debate. I just find them so sad. I haven't watched any of them. I'm just really not interested in. I mean, I don't know. I think like it's kind of sad how many smart people still are locked into like paying attention to this spectacle. I think like most smart people I know will say things like, "Oh, it's such a circus. It's all a spectacle. It's so crazy and dumb and bad," but they still watch it. And I think that's a problem. Like, you really do have to withdraw from the spectacle if you want to, have a clear mind, think really original and creative things, or even just like have a healthy life. I really do believe strongly in a radical withdrawal from the spectacle. And I mean, I know that there's still like a stigma around being uninformed, right? Like if you don't pay attention to the news, you're seen as like kind of dumb or a loser or something like this. There's still a bit of that stigma floating around in our society. But increasingly, I think that's going to change. And I think increasingly, if you pay attention to the news and if you pay attention to things like the TV debates, you will be outing yourself as a kind of outdated loser who's like still stuck in the past that doesn't matter anymore. So yeah, I really don't pay attention, and I think it is harmful to pay attention to these things. I really do think that. But with that as a caveat, I did accidentally watch like 15 minutes of it at the bar the other night before the bartender turned it off to put on like baseball instead. And the impression I got from it was, I don't know how much this generalizes, but the clip that I was watching, they were mostly bullshitting about impeachment. Like the Democrats seemed to be falling over themselves to be like virtue signaling about how Trump is so bad and we have to stop Trump. And it just seems so pathetic to me. I mean, that was my main impression. It's just so fake and so pathetic. And yeah, so unfortunately I don't have. My mother taught me not to say anything if I don't have anything nice to say. So I don't think I have much more to say.
I accidentally skipped over a question. Oh, and someone made a comment that I need a mic because I guess they probably can't hear the questions. But
right, we'll work on that. Yeah.
Yeah. How would you categorize this channel? The Truth Will Live asks.
How would I characterize my YouTube channel?
Yeah.
Well, I think my YouTube channel is one of a kind in some sense. Like, I'm not reinventing the wheel or anything like that. But what I would say about my channel is I don't know of many other people who are doing what I'm trying to do. And I think what I'm trying to do, it's not particularly noble or special or anything like that. I'm not hyping myself up in that way. But I do think what I'm doing is unique. And essentially what is unique about my channel is that I'm just trying to create a little media system that I own completely, that is essentially a few interconnected parts of reflecting different media, different formats, in other words. So my blog for text and books for text, and this for speaking in a visual way, and then the podcast for speaking in a non-visual way. And by having these few interconnected parts, essentially what I'm trying to build with all of it is just the most imminent and flexible, powerful, disintermediated kind of intellectual production system that's ever been made. And I don't think anyone's ever really thought about it like that. Again, whether I succeed or not, whether I am truly some sort of pioneer in this regard, only time will tell, and you can be the judge of that. I don't know. But I can tell you what I'm trying to do, and that's essentially what I'm trying to do. So I still see myself essentially as a social scientist. I'm a political theorist. I'm a political scientist. And just like I was doing research for the past, ever since my PhD and my 6 years in academia, my main vocation in life is to try to ask the right questions and solve them in the most compelling way possible to make discoveries about the fundamental workings of society and politics, and to figure things out on that front. So that's my main vocation, and that has never changed. What I'm doing now with this channel and with my other media formats is I'm just trying to create a system where I can do that, where I can do essentially, where I can live a long-term intellectual life project, asking whatever questions I want, trying to make, intellectual discoveries on whatever fronts I'm working on, where I can just do that as autonomously and freely and independently as possible. Also, as rapidly and as effectively and efficiently as possible with the greatest reach possible. So I don't really know of any other people doing that exactly as explicitly as I am. I think there are other people for sure who have kind of paved the way, who I've kind of used as role models to kind of see this as a possibility. But I think in other people's cases, they've kind of done it in this piecemeal iterative way. So for instance, like if you look at someone like Jordan Peterson, for instance, really, really interesting example of, because he was working as an academic his whole life and just slowly posting things to YouTube, posting his lectures year after year. And he did that for a very long time without much recognition or notoriety. And then all of a sudden, his YouTube channel is just like blowing up. His whole persona and project is like blowing up, right? So that's obviously one kind of previous example of someone who's doing something like what I'm doing, right? But I guess I kind of represent, and my channel kind of represents, a kind of younger generation of academics or intellectuals who look at things like Jordan Peterson, look at which way the wind is blowing. And I'm getting much more kind of explicit and strategic about, okay, how can I actually build a system from scratch that really optimizes all of these systems in an interconnected way? So Jordan Peterson, for instance, doesn't really blog or he's kind of at a stage in his career where he's already made the discoveries he's going to make for the most part. And now he goes around the world basically saying things he's already figured out. And he's like constantly repackaging a couple big messages, and hats off to him. That's not even to criticize him, because it's hard as hell to have a few unique messages that really reflect your cultivated, studied, intellectual worldview. So hell yeah, that's probably a good thing to do if you're older and you've already made some discoveries and people are interested in them. Then yeah, go off and speak them. I'm at a different stage in my intellectual life and in my career and life cycle. I'm only 32. I like to think that my most significant kind of intellectual accomplishments or discoveries are still ahead of me. I feel like I've only just gotten started, and that's why I've kind of broke away from academia to do this stuff full time, is because my honest feeling is that I'm going to be able to accomplish so much more intellectually in terms of discovering new things, writing profound and original books that really contribute to the conversation and advance kind of intellectual history. I fundamentally believe I'll be able to do far more on all of those fronts over the next 3 years by doing all of this stuff full time than I would have been able to do over probably 15 years in academia. I really do believe that the ratio is something like that. And so, yeah, I hope that answers your question. That's essentially what I'm trying to do with this channel and my other kind of formats, or my other kind of media channels, is essentially just liberate myself intellectually to have the most explosive, free, efficient, rapid, and overall kind of like productive and impactful intellectual career possible. Yeah. Anything else?
Yeah, there's actually a lot.
How many viewers are we at?
33 right now.
Okay. Well, folks, I would love to answer more of your questions, but I got to wrap this up because I got to go on and do some other things today. So, yeah, if you have questions that I didn't get to answer, just bring them back to another live stream that I do. I'll be happy to get to them. And hint, reminder, you could always do a super chat, which will guarantee your question gets pushed to the top. So just a reminder, I'm happy to answer questions for free. I'm not stingy, but just reminding you, it is a way to sneak your question in there and guarantee a response. So, all right, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to my channel. As you can see, we're investing a lot of time and energy in building this baby up, and it looks better and better every time we do so. So, yeah, I'm very confident that over the next several months, this channel is going to be like increasingly impressive and polished and enjoyable to listen to and watch. and we have some cool people coming on. We have Dasha from Red Scare coming on August 8th, and I'm in talks with a bunch of other people to have a steady stream of cool people joining us. So yeah. Any other last things you think are important, Ben? All right. Well, send a big thanks to Ben Williamson also for helping me out with all the stuff. And you can find him on Twitter. What is it? BDC Williamson, is it? There you go. You can chat with Ben if you want. And all right. Thanks for hanging out, everyone. I hope you like the new setup. And thanks to you, Ben, for all your help.